What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla adding microtransactions in a month after the game is out. So this is something that hopefully you guys have seen reported over the past couple of days, and this is an important issue that I do think needs to be talked about. And there's a couple aspects with it. I don't want to take a full, there is a big negative to take from this, and I am going to take that negative, but I do want to firstly say, your decision-making in games is completely up to you. I think that's important to say. If you want to buy these microtransactions, you have every right to, right? It's your money. As long as you're not, and I'm not even speaking to these people, but, you hear the stories of, kids taking their parents' credit card, spending it on mobile games or games, on their iPad or stuff like that. I mean, that's where it gets predatory, and that's where it gets, really, really bad. There's some that are not as bad, and, I think I've seen worse than the one being added to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but the point is, a month after the game is out, so we're now sitting here, I believe this came out on Wednesday, so we're looking at, the 16th, the game came out November 10th, so around a month after the game came out, they've now added where you can do XP boosters in this game through buying with real currency, with your actual, with your actual money. So again, if you want to do it, you do it. But the issue here is this: you gotta look bigger picture with things like this. Crash Nitro Refueled, which I love that game, I adore that game. I'm so happy that game got made. That started a cataclysmic event that's not going to end anytime soon. Remember what happened with that game? That game came out, and I believe before that game came out, there always has been a history of adding of microtransactions, okay? But I think Activision was looking pretty bad at the time. I don't exactly remember the history, but remember, the game came out, and then around a month later, it came out at the end of June. At the end of July, they changed, basically, the leveling system. So when the game came out, if you guys played it or you remember it, it was actually insane how good it was. You earned a lot of XP, or the Wampa fruit. You earned a lot of it per race, and you could unlock loads of stuff very quickly. You were always unlocking stuff because as long as you were playing, and even if you didn't finish first or second, you were doing really good. Then around a month later, they changed it where progression was literally a grind. They changed it entirely where you had to do probably 10, 20 times more races than you did before to earn the exact same amount. And then they added where you could pay with in-game, with your not in-game, with your own currency, with out-of-game currency, with real-world currency, and that's what you could do. Okay, now that was followed, I believe, by sports games like NBA, stuff like that, right? Adding in those advertisements to the game a month after. This has happened a couple times. Okay, now Ubisoft does it. So we've had EA do this. Activision, I believe, started this kind of trend of hiding it, basically, not having it in its game, reviewing it. If the reviews come out really well, a month later, this happens, right, where they're hiding it. Then, again, EA did its own, EA kind of twist to it, and now we have Ubisoft doing pretty much exactly what Activision did. Okay, they didn't change the leveling system. They literally just add, and that's the thing. Crash, I think, is the worst way of doing it because not only did you add in that you can pay with real-world money, but you also made it so that the progression that was already in the game, you completely nuked it, where it's just awful now. Assassin's Creed is different. You still level up and everything the exact same way that you did. Only now you could buy it. And their reasoning, they actually issued a statement of a reason of why they did it. It does coincide with that. I think their reasoning it's not word for word, but their reasoning was, it's a month later. There's going to be a lot of new content being added. They want people to be able to kind of catch up to the levels that you need to be to experience all this new stuff. That's pretty much the reason. So I do get it. I understand it. But again, the basic, and it makes sense. Their reasoning does line up with, what seems to actually be going on. And again, they're not changing the actual leveling. But so I'm not going to pick on them too much for that. But at the same time, you do have to call this stuff out when it happens because this is, again, not a good trend. I do believe part of it is the fact that, the DLC is going to come out. The season pass exists, right? If you bought both of the special editions, you got the season pass, right? And those are going to come in 2020, early 2021. So there will be things that if you're not a high enough level, but you want to experience, the siege of Paris and all that kind of stuff, you'll need to spend real world money, right? Or you can just play the game, which is what I think even the article I was reading about this thing, I think it was Eurogamer, did say they did this for the last one. They did did this for Odyssey, and people were also upset, mainly because grinding, it was like a grind to get these levels. So that was a problem to begin with. Now, my wife has played like 60 hours of Valhalla. It seems like she's leveled up relatively like easily. I'm not speaking for her, but that's what it looks like. So I don't know if they changed it, massively for this game. It looks like it. It doesn't look like it's as much of a grind, but you have, what I mean? And so people were very upset back then. Also because, by the way, it's a single-player game. You're not competing with anybody. You're just playing the game. In multiplayer actually has its own kind of demons with it too, where it's like, well, you could say the excuses, well, you're competing with other people, but it's like, well, then it's literally paying to win. Like if you're paying to be competitive and they're paying to be competitive, then you're both paying to fight each other. You're both paying to try to win the game. That's literally what pay to win is. So that's not a good way of saying it for multiplayer, and because of that, it's really not a good thing to say for single player. Why do you need this stuff in it? You know what I mean? You just play, this is just nothing. This never happened before. Okay, I mean, obviously it's happened over the past several years, half decade, but like before then, you played a game. The game came out, you leveled up, like any RPG or JRPG. You think people played Final Fantasy VII for like a couple hours, and they're like, I mean the original, right? And they're like, well, I guess I could just spend real world money to level up. No, you grind it out. Now, yes, there's bad ways of like games do grinding bad, games do grinding good, but that's up to the game. That's the game's fault, right? That's how you judge these kind of games. Is okay. Well, is there massive grinding? Just because there is doesn't mean it's bad. Do you enjoy it? Do they make it enjoyable? If the answer is yes, then the game probably gets points, right? It's a good game. If you have to grind and the grinding's terrible, the game drops. The game's not that good, right? That's how it is. You shouldn't need to pay real-world money to increase your character in the game. You should just do it in the game. That's my opinion, but again, everybody has their own money. It's up to you guys how you want to spend it. But the general idea of hiding this, that's the biggest thing. They hid this for the first month. They won, and that's the thing. They 100% planned on it because they gave a reason for it. They literally had a reason pre-prepared, saying, okay, well, here's why we're implementing it. You don't think they had that in their heads a month ago? Of course they did. Of course they could have done this a month ago, and and I would say 4 or 5 years ago, they would have done it day one, right? But because it gets such backlash, because people kind of revolt, because that would result in canceled pre-orders, because that would reflect itself in reviews in the day and age of the internet and like YouTubing, right? People like me, I would have made a video. People like Angry Joe, like obviously people bigger than me, they would have made videos. It would have gotten out. Same thing with Crash. Same thing with Crash Nitro Refueled. If that happened day one, if the grinding was god awful, okay, and you could pay with real world money, don't you think that would have been reflected in the review? Absolutely. One of the better parts of that game for the first month was the fact that you were constantly unlocking things because the progression was so good. So if it literally was the way it was a month later at launch, it would have been terrible. Same thing with EA with like the UFC and the ads. If that was day one, do you know how much they would have got ripped to shreds? Of course they knew that, so they didn't do it. And so that's the biggest thing. While, again, like it is a single-player game, and you're not directly influencing or affecting anybody else, it is better, I would say, than like a multiplayer game. I don't think it's as predatory. Again, like the leveling seems pretty okay from everything that I've seen, like how you do it. So there are, like, you can understand parts of it, but the general idea of hiding it and not doing it day one for the simple fact that you don't want people to know that it's going to happen and then doing it a month later, well, that immediately gets you in trouble. You know what I mean? Because you knew you could have done it day one. You knew about it day one. You hid it on purpose so that nobody would complain, and now you do it. Now you do it, and now you're going to make money off of it, which is the most disappointing thing. And then it's going to make its way into future games. This is the world we live in, and we need to speak out against this to hopefully, well, number one, make it so that, well, at least it doesn't happen day one ever again, which seems like it's kind of the thing. The publishers and developers seem to know to not put these things in day one now, but what they've now learned is just put it in 1 month later. Just do it a month, do it 40 days, do it 50 days later. Maybe nobody will notice. That's their new trick. And then if people don't notice and people are okay with it, then we'll see it 2 weeks later. Then we'll see it the day after review. This is how it will work. It really will, because you give them an inch, they take a mile. That's the saying, and that is what's going to happen. So we need to call them out for these kind of things. So let me know, guys, in the comments below. What do you think? Are you mad about this? Do you not care? Did you play Assassin's Creed? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I do a brand new video on this channel every single day, and so I hope to see you guys for tomorrow's video.